All right, so we're back. I told you I was going to film that other video, and then I was going to come back and film more on the truck. I already told you that, and we're doing it. So we're gonna slide a Earl pan underneath it, pull some oil out of it. Sorry, this is the microphone right here. I'm wearing this hoodie. There's nowhere good to clip it, so hopefully you can hear me. You should be able to, hopefully, theoretically. Anyway, we're going to slide up underneath this unit. We're going to drain the Earl out of it. Once the Earl's drained out good, we're going to drop the oil pan off of it and see what it looks like. We'll probably quit after that. It depends. We might get in the mood. We might press on. It just depends. Let's see. Need to find, here's our Earl pan right there. Let's get our funnel in it, which is always nice. Put this right here. Get our Earl pan up underneath there. Well, pal, there you go. The rat has been making love to my creeper over here, which I appreciate. It's chewed on my headrest, people. It's been chewing on my headrest, and I don't appreciate it. Don't appreciate it even a little bit. So that's good. Pleased with that. Let's see. Get the creeper up underneath there. I don't remember what direction is the best to go underneath this truck from. Probably from the front. Yes, I don't know. I think the 226 has got one of those freakishly large oil pan plugs like the F heads and L heads do, or the plugs like that big around, you know, for some reason, which is better than it being too small, you know. I shouldn't complain. It lets you drain the Earl faster. Let's see. Get our pliers because I don't feel like searching for the correct nut. All right. These are Knipex. I love these. They basically replace a crescent wrench, but they're 10 times better. So, let's see. Let's get you stuck onto something. There's no reason to show you just undoing the plug. So let me just do that real quick. And then we'll go from there. Set you down right here. Hopefully you people are doing all right. Everything's good. You're sitting around fat and sassy from your festivities on this fine Thanksgiving Day. Hopefully it's been solid for you. I hope it has. Let's get this crap put in the truck. Maybe the rat won't get into it. I don't know if this is the rat that jumped out of the truck that I brought back from Oklahoma. It could be. Which if it is, then that rat is the size of a greyhound. So, and it's in one of my older videos. You can see the rat. It's substantial in size. So put this, cover the fecal matter from the rat. Let's see. There you go. Maybe you can see me. Hopefully the camera won't fall off. Well, let's take a look in a book on Willys. Every one of these trucks, oh, there goes the microphone. Every one of these trucks is coated in oil, which is awesome. Let me take the microphone and put it somewhere because I just know it's going to get messed up. Hang on. Ow. This was not the direction to roll under the truck from. I was wrong. Let's clip you right there. Yeah, you should be able to hear me, hypothetically. Turn the roll pan. Yeah, it's got the massive plug in it like I figured. Let's see. There we go. And now we need to oh, there we go. Get it broke loose. I don't know if we've changed the oil in this truck or not, so I guess we'll get to find out if it's all water. Oh man, not a whole lot draining out. That's kind of weird. Huh. I don't know. Let's grab our microphone while that drains. All right, so while that's draining, we'll talk about some history. How about that? Let me wipe my hands off and get up, and then we'll talk about some history. All right, sound good? All right, cool. Oh. So while driving, there's only so much you can listen to about the Civil War and World War I and II and the Holocaust and all that kind of stuff. So I switched it up. I've been listening to some true crime stuff from back in the day. Some stuff about murders and stuff like that from back in the really like the before the 1930s mainly. And one of them that I was listening to, of course, is the infamous Jack the Ripper. All right. I was already pretty familiar with Jack the Ripper before listening to this multiple different documentaries and podcasts and stuff. But there were some things I didn't know about Jack the Ripper, or the man that is purported to be Jack the Ripper, considering they have no idea who it was. And people like to pretend that they know who it was, but they don't. And we probably never will know who it was because this happened in 1888. And I feel like most of those folks are dead. So, but what's so interesting about Jack the Ripper? Well, for instance, I didn't realize that the picture of his last victim, who was named, I believe it was, what was her name? Mary Jane Kelly, I believe. She was reported to be an Irish woman. She was a woman of the evening, let's say. Most of these women in this area, in what they called Whitechapel and the East End of London, most of them had turned to prostitution out of necessity because they were living in squalor and there was not a whole lot going on. So you had a lot of guys resorting to robbery and basically like highwayman stuff, robbing people, and women tend to go towards prostitution and things like that. So Mary Jane Kelly is Jack the Ripper's last victim, and the picture of the crime scene from where he murdered her is reported to be the earliest known crime scene photograph. It is extremely graphic. If you've never seen it, if you have a weak stomach or you're very, sensitive towards things like this, I would tell you not to look at it because it's extremely graphic. But that's allegedly the first photo of its kind ever taken of a crime scene. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Jack the Ripper is also reported to be the first serial killer that had basically a nickname, Jack the Ripper. That's the first one. I was under the impression that there were serial killers prior to him. They didn't call them serial killers back then, but that there was ones prior to him that had, nicknames or monikers or what have you. But apparently, people agree that he's either the first one to ever have a nickname like that, because originally they were calling him the Whitechapel Murderer. And usually that's what they did for people back in the day that were being, that were killers, is that they called them by the area in which people were being murdered, not really a nickname. So, now, the name Jack the Ripper comes from a letter that's known as the Dear Boss letter, and the Dear Boss letter was reportedly to be from the murderer, but there's very little evidence supporting that. There's nothing in the letter that the general public wouldn't have known. It's suspected that the Dear Boss letter came from probably a news reporter or a newspaper author or something trying to bolster enthusiasm about the murders, so that, basically sell more newspapers. And, I know it's hard to believe that journalists and the media would lie, but they always have, and they always will, okay? So they were lying then, too. This is 1888. They're already making crap up, so it's more than likely the case that the Dear Boss letter was not wrote by who we call Jack the Ripper. It is interesting, though, because, it's always a possibility. We don't know. It's very possible that it was wrote by him, but it's unlikely. There was another letter that's called the From Hell letter that is way more likely to have actually been wrote by the killer. And interestingly enough, it's not signed Jack the Ripper. It's signed, and it always makes me laugh, and it's not funny, but I guess it's because I have a dark sense of humor, but this guy signed it, Catch Me When You Can, like he's just tormenting these people. He's sassing them. He's giving them the business in these letters and stuff. So this one's not signed Jack the Ripper. It also came with a piece of a human kidney. So it's more than likely from the killer, because that woman that he had killed, he had taken one of her kidneys. So this letter shows up. It describes that murder. It describes about a previous murder a little bit, and then it says, references the kidney, and that he has sent part of it to this man named Mr. Lusk, who was basically over like a council of public safety. It's like a civilian public safety council, and he was the president of it. And so the murderer wrote this letter and sent the piece of kidney to him. There's a lot of weird stuff that occurs around this story. It's attributed that he killed 5 women. It's very possible that he killed more than that he killed, there were several murders prior to what's considered the canonical 5. There's murders even after Mary Jane Kelly that are suspected to possibly be from the same killer. The problem is that it's the 5 in a row are all very similar, with the exception of one. One is very, it appears that she was killed with a different kind of a knife than the other 4. But either way, the style, if you will, the MO of the killer is lined up, pretty nicely to assume that those are all the same person. The previous 2 murders that are sometimes attributed to him are very different. They appear to be gang activity. because there was lots of gangs roaming around in this area. They appear to be gang-related, and the murders after Mary Jane Kelly appear to be either copycat killers because they're similar, but they're not the same. They're nowhere near as violent as, I mean, obviously if somebody dies, it's violent, but I'm saying it's nowhere near, like, to the level of Mary Jane Kelly's murder. Another thing that's interesting about all this crap is that where we get sneakers from, like a tennis shoe, basically, is reported to have been as a result of Jack the Ripper, because the police are wearing these very stiff leather, sometimes very hard leather bottom shoes, sometimes even wood in the bottom of them. And so when you're walking on cobblestone, it's very loud, and they wanted the police, or the bobbies as the British call them, they want them walking around on the cobblestone patrolling for this murderer, and they want them to be able to walk quietly. So they started putting rubber on the bottom of the shoes so that they could sneak around. And that's allegedly basically the earliest rendition of what we call sneakers. And it comes from that, which was the bobbies modifying shoes, putting rubber soles on them so that they could sneak around Whitechapel in an effort to catch Jack the Ripper. Okay, so that's kind of cool. It's a weird little, it doesn't have anything to do with anything, but it's kind of neat that that's where it comes from. And there's even comments about it at the time that that's where it comes from, and that's where this new shoe that came out, at the turn of the century is where it comes from. There's multiple people that are assumed to be Jack the Ripper. There's camps. There's really like three major guys. There's a guy named Charles Cross, or sometimes he's called Charles Leshmere, who is a very popular one. There's an American named Francis Tumplety, who was most certainly a bit of a psychopath. That it was in London at the time. He was in Whitechapel at the time, and he flees England after an arrest for some unrelated stuff, which also coincides to the ending of the murders. But Francis Tumplety, he was a con man. He was certainly a psycho, but it doesn't appear that he is of the caliber necessary to do these kind of things. Charles Leshmere is a lot of circumstantial stuff. Like, he was one of the ones that found one of the first, I think he was the first victim. He was one of the men that found her, and there is some kind of weird behavior after the fact when he's supposed to be giving testimony about what occurred and everything. But, if you'd found a woman that had been murdered in the street in 1888 London, and that maybe they just want to have a witch hunt, and whoever looks good is who they're going to claim as the killer, you'd probably be acting a little weird too if you were the unfortunate person that found this murder victim. You're probably not going to be all, excited about going down to the police station and chatting it up with the bobbies and everything. You're probably not going to be super keen on that either. There was another guy, I think, that was from Poland that was considered to be a suspect at the time. There's a kind of a wealthy, not so much a nobleman, but from a well-respected family called Druitt. There was this guy that ended up drowning himself in the Thames in 1888, about 6 weeks after the last murder. He's a pretty decent candidate for it. If you look at his life, he certainly was unstable. Now, just because you're unstable doesn't necessarily mean that you're criminally unstable. But there's lots of different suspects. The probability is that one of these men was Jack the Ripper, but we'll never know that for sure. There's no way. This is before fingerprints are available. This is before they could identify human blood from animal blood. This is before any kind of an actual database set up. Now, if we had more of the documents from the time, now a lot of those documents were lost, and then a lot of them were destroyed during World War II, during the the Blitz on London when the Germans were bombing London. So, excuse me, we're only looking at a very small percentage of the documents that were involved with the Jack the Ripper murder. So, who's to say that some of the documents that were burned in London in the 40s or that were thrown away, say in the 20s, there might have been major information in that you might could make a very solid case around one person in particular, but we don't have them. We don't have access to them. So Jack the Ripper's been kind of made into like an icon for some reason, and I don't understand. I feel very strangely about that. Like, they keep making all these movies about serial killers and TV shows about serial killers, and I don't, like, it's one thing to watch a documentary or listen to a podcast. It's another thing to make like a motion picture about Jeffrey Dahmer, and like it's always struck me as almost a celebration of this person. And you're like, and they always say the same, it's about the victims. You're like, then why is your movie poster got Jeffrey Dahmer on it? Why is the name of it this? Like, it's all about the serial killer. Why are we celebrating serial killers? And it's because people have the same fascination with this kind of stuff as they did during Roman times. Nobody made people go to the gladiator games to see people get killed by lions. All right, people on a whole tend to like violence. That's why they like, Thrasher movies and, like Scream and Saw and all this kind of stuff, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like modern day gladiator games. People went in person to see people die. Now you watch it on a movie and it's fictional, but it's the same kind of behavior. People like, they like violence and stuff. So I don't particularly like things that glorify, these horrible murderers. But I find the history of it and the basically the mystery of trying to find out, who Jack the Ripper was, for example, I find that interesting, because you had a lot of good men and women at the time trying to catch these people. You had men dressing up as women, patrolling Whitechapel trying to catch him. You had basically like a tripling of the amount of police walking around the area. And the fact that he was able to kill in an area where there was supposedly, I think they say it was 800 people an acre. You had families living, 8, 9 families, and, basically in one, room. So it was so horribly overcrowded. The fact that this guy can go in, murder somebody in the street with buildings and houses and stuff everywhere, and nobody ever really legitimately saw him. There was people that there was one man that saw him, that people feel like for sure probably did actually see him. That's a reliable witness. And so from that, we gather that he was probably about 30. He appeared to be, fairly well dressed. He had a mustache. They said he was wearing a overcoat and what they called a deer stalker hat, which is, from what I understand, is like similar to a derby or a bowler hat. And there's rumors that other people had seen him from time to time, like, that they saw one of the victims talking to a man not long before she was murdered. But these women are also, trying to solicit men, for the business, right? So they're probably talking to virtually any man that walks by. So just because they saw her talking to this guy doesn't mean he's the murderer. He might just be going home to his wife and kids, and he's walking by, and this woman's trying to get some business out of him or whatever. And so, he talks to her and keeps going. But the one witness appears to have actually seen him. Now, keep in mind that he murdered one woman behind a house, or like from what I understand, it appears to be like almost a 2-story little small townhouse. He murdered her in the backyard of this house while the owner of that house was in the house sleeping. And he absolutely butchered this woman in the backyard of this house. And there was a witness that was in the house adjacent to that one who had went out into the backyard, basically to the outhouse, and he heard a woman, according to him, say no, and then he heard what sounded like somebody being thrown into the fence. Now that fence, from reports at the time, was about 5 feet tall. So he could have looked over the fence and probably seen Jack the Ripper murdering this woman. But he didn't. Probably for various reasons, because, that it's lots of times people take the easiest course of action, right? You don't want to be in trouble. You don't want to deal with trouble. You don't want to see nothing because you don't want to deal with it. He might have been legitimately afraid that if he looked over and seen this occur, then this guy obviously doesn't have a problem with killing people, probably would kill him, so he's just, I'm going to go back to sleep. And so he just went back to his house. The guy's not afraid of getting caught, apparently, because he's doing this out in the open for the most part. So it's very interesting that he can be this open with it out. Now, it's late at night, obviously, but there's still people everywhere. But that nobody intercepts him, that nobody sees where he goes. He most certainly lived in the area. He most certainly was probably a resident there. He was probably somebody that everybody knew. He probably wasn't married, from what they gather from the profile they've built on him. They think that he wasn't married. He probably didn't have any children. He probably was between 25 and 35. Because it wouldn't have been easy if you had a wife and children to leave at, 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, and be out roaming around and not be responsible for somebody else. So it's but that's all an assumption. We don't know we don't know who he was at all, so we're just making assumptions. But I don't know. I find it interesting. It's not my normal history I talk about, but I like to switch the history up some. And the whole stuff about Jack the Ripper and that kind of whole era, right as you're approaching the turn of the century, is an extremely violent time for crime for some reason. There's a lot of economic turmoil. There's lots of depressions in the United States going on all throughout the 1880s and 90s. There's depressions in England and France and Germany and stuff going on. You're right in the throes of the early days of the Industrial Revolution, and so you're getting a lot of things are changing rather quickly, and people, a lot of people get left behind. A lot of people move into this new era with pre-existing problems. They're drunks, they're drug addicts, they're whatever, and they don't adapt to things very well, and they get left behind. Some people come from horrible backgrounds in this era, just like today. We all know people that have not the best start in life, and it's not their fault. And so, they've got that to deal with. So this whole area of England of London is just saturated with these kinds of people, right? A lot of these women that were killed by Jack the Ripper had been married, had children, had a whole life prior to what they're known for. And it's sad that the only thing they're known for is that they were a prostitute that was killed by Jack the Ripper, All of them, from all accounts, all of them were debilitated drunks. I don't know anybody, and I know people that are drunks, I don't know anybody that I know that's a drunk that's happy. Okay? I don't know anybody, because chances are if they were happy, they wouldn't be a debilitated drunk. So these women weren't in probably the best mental state at the time. They weren't in a good era of time or not so much era of time, but they weren't in a good area. And there's not a whole lot for them to do. Several cases, these women's husbands had died. Some of them had been thrown out of their families because they were drunks. And when you're just abandoned by everything, or you lose everything, what do? You go to where you can go, and people end up doing what they have to do sometimes. And so they're remembered as being these prostitutes murdered by Jack the Ripper. And even at the time, they said that they deserved it. They had it coming. They were, bringing it on themselves. And I mean, you can make that argument to an extent, I guess, because these women were still going out knowing that there was a murderer killing women that worked at night doing this stuff, and they still went out. But at the other end of the hand, you've got, well, they had to go out if they wanted somewhere to sleep and didn't want to sleep in the street. So it's obviously never good to blame the victim, but were they being as safe as they could have been? No. Did they have the luxury of being as safe as they could have been? No. So I think it's important to remember that these were actual human beings, not just pictures. They were actual women that had lives, that had children, that had people that cared about them. And there's a lot more to them than just the fact that they were murdered by Jack the Ripper, is what I'm saying. Some of them had very, very sad and depressing lives, and some of them that came from very decent backgrounds that things just turned against them. So there's actually a whole group of their descendants that have met that are all descendants of Jack the Ripper victims. Some of them still carry the same last names of the victims. And what's even more interesting is you can see the family resemblance when you look at a picture of the woman Polly Nichols, which I believe was the first victim. They've got pictures of her, and you look at what would be like her third or fourth great granddaughter, and you can see the family resemblance. So you can see it in the way their eyes are shaped and their nose and the way their face is shaped, that this is obviously they're related, So I don't know, it's really interesting because you always hear just about the murderer. You very rarely hear any detail about the victims. Like even this stuff, like if you're watching this right now, there was just a horrific murder in Idaho of some college students. And I've heard all about the murder itself. I've seen it on the news, everything, but you don't hear anything about the people that were murdered. Like these are all young people. They were in college, they all had lives and family and stuff, but all we hear about is how they were murdered, which is what I meant earlier when I say people gravitate towards the violence. They don't really care much, unfortunately, about the individuals. So, which hopefully that asshole gets caught and strung up from a short piece of rope, because it's messed up. If you haven't seen anything about that, then you'll be hearing a lot more about it, I'm sure, on the news and stuff, especially if you're in Idaho. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about it. Hopefully they can catch that guy sooner than later. But anyway, surely the oil is done draining out. Let's stop talking about murderers for a second and get back to the Willys at hand. How about that? Sound good? Sound good. Let's grab some tools. Actually, this magnet's strong. I've actually got some tools right here. Let's see. Let's get our flashlight. Check. Let's get our light bar so that maybe we can see something. Gas can. This is our light bar right here. Hopefully the rat hasn't chewed it. It's just cold enough here to want to wear some kind of hoodie or jacket or something, but not really cold enough to warrant wearing it, which is always nice. Come on, let go. How does this happen? It's like fishing line. How does it get tangled this bad? Why did you do this? Oh, all right. Let's get this plugged in so y'all can see something, because I know y'all like seeing stuff. I like to see stuff too. Let's put you right here. You can take a look at our fancy setup. That's our fuel system right now, because this truck needs a gas tank. They always do. But fortunately, the gas tanks for these trucks are actually fairly reasonable. Good quality. I bought one for Jubal. Very pleased with. Very pleased with it. This truck has, I think these trucks came with a factory, I think it's a 10-gallon tank, which is a joke, by the way, in case you were wondering. Absolute joke. I guess they didn't intend on you driving very far back in the day, now did they? Oh. I was going to try to put some history in this video for y'all. So we got Jack the Ripper. I'm probably going to throw out some more history here in a minute too. So yeah, just embrace it, you know. Let's get back up underneath this unit. I feel like these bolts are going to be 9/16 or 1/2 inch, because everything on a Willys is either 1/2 inch or 9/16. So at least it appears that way. Let's see. 9/16. 7/16, which is possible that it could be. There's a 1/2 inch. All right, let's get this laid down. Those there. Let's grab our magnetic tray to put our bolts in, because that's why we bought it. And let's grab an extension, because I just feel like we're going to need one. Hopefully we don't have to pull the starter off to get the oil pan off, but we very well might have to. I don't know. Let's grab this one, little one. That's the main function of these. So you keep up with your bolts, people. You need your bolts. Let's stick that to the frame. Grab our light. What we'll do is we'll start on this end and work our way, get as many of them out from this side as we can, and then we'll work our way around. Oh. Yep. So there's our Earl pan. It's got lots of dirt daubers on it, which is nice. Nice, very nice. Yep. Let's see, where can I put y'all where you're not horrendously in the way of getting damaged, but where you might still see something? Alright, so here's the Earl pan. And we are going to try and take out these bolts up in here and all along this edge, which hopefully y'all can see. I don't know if you can or not. Oh, come on. And of course the ones on the other side, so. And that does appear to be 9/16. Oh man, hopefully you can hear me. Let's put our microphone back here. Let's see. I'll look you on that field line right there, so hopefully you can hear me. All right. Let's get these. don't know if they have these dirt daubers where y'all are at, but they suck, alright? They're always on these Willys trucks everywhere. Let's see, is it 9/16? It might actually be half. Yeah, it might actually be ½ inch. Oh, ow. I don't know fractions. I'm a history major, alright? I don't know nothing about birthing no babies, alright? Ow. Ow. Come on, ow. That's 1 out of 270, so. These 6-cylinders have such long oil pans. They've got so many bolts in them. The dirt daubers make it even better. There's so much dirt in my eyes, people. Alright, let me grab a screwdriver. Damn it, they went right in my face. I don't know if y'all can see anything. Hopefully you can. Are you having fun yet? I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. Oh, man. Ow. I don't know why I don't just go ahead and jack this thing up enough to where I can get under it, but I guess because that would make sense. I don't know. The frame on this truck is in very nice shape. Very nice. Which Willys trucks seem to have frames in good shape most of the time. I've seen a couple that were pretty roached, but for the most part, they seem to fare well. I think it's just because of the Willys quality, you know what I'm saying? Let's get you moved to a different location where maybe you can see a little better. If I can get you unstuck. Right there, maybe. Can you see me? Yeah, I'm working on this side, and then we gotta take them out on this side as well. So, let's go ahead and see if we can't pull one or two off of this side. Oh man, there's so much debris. That's the only thing I like about working on a newer vehicle, is that there's usually not so much crap falling in your eyes. It's so strange, honestly. It's such a weird experience to not have debris falling in your eyes constantly. Well, it's not raining yet here, so that's kind of disappointing because I like working on this stuff in the rain. I'm full-blown Ronnie Millsap. I can't see nothing. I love Ronnie Millsap, by the way. When I say that, I'm not mocking the man. He was is a fabulous musician, because I believe he is still with us, and I love me some Ronnie Millsap. You know, interestingly enough, mentioning Ronnie Millsap, I actually understand that he was born almost completely blind, but he could see a little bit. But then when he was at school, one of his teachers slapped him in the back of the head so hard that he lost what little bit of eyesight he had left, which is, you know, that sucks. But he still gave us Smoky Mountain Rain, Stranger in My House, and the man's a legend, is what I'm trying to say. All right. Man is a legend. There's a stranger in my house. Ow, there's a stranger in my Willys truck. All right, let's see. Ow. There's only 300 more bolts to go. At least they're all the same size, it appears. Unlike on the CJ5, where they're like two different sizes and all that. Hopefully y'all can see something. There's not just so much dust on the lens. I hope you can. gonna have to check and see if there's any oil in these differentials, in the transmission transfer case, because I don't feel like we've looked. And I understand, my simple mind seems to feel that these items seem to work better if there's oil in them. But that's just a guess. That was aggressive. Anyway, somebody told me they wanted to hear about logging and big timber. I don't know a whole lot about it. From this, I know more about pulpwooding, which is something my grandfather did back in the day. He hauled pulpwood during World War II. I do know that during the Revolution, Georgia, North Carolina, what is now North Carolina, and South Carolina, but especially Georgia and North Carolina, were supplying a ridiculous amount of pine for multiple things. So they used pine tar to make pine pitch tar, which is basically like a glue they used to seal up the sailing ships for the Royal Navy. They also used the really tall, straight pines for construction, masts, and stuff like that. And one of the early things that really made Georgia mad at Britain, the colony of Georgia mad at Britain, was the British demanded the high quality pine. And all the second grade and third grade pine was allowed to stay in Georgia and be sold for the colonists to use. And eventually it got to the point where the colonists that were cutting all this timber told the British to basically pound sand, and that they were going to, keep the good stuff. And they did that originally by just marking the second and third rate pine and lumber as first grade and sending it to the British. And just, yeah, that's the good stuff. Of course it is. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the good stuff. It looks like the lumber you buy at Home Depot now, where it's all twisted, and us colonists are telling the British, like, no, that's the best we got. Come on, guys. So that's pretty cool. North Carolina was supplying a ridiculous amount of timber to the British, a ridiculous amount. And they were selling it back over in England. The American timber was of such high demand and high quality that it was selling for just an obscene amount per board foot during the era prior to the American Revolution. And it's insane. You can look up some of the numbers, and it's millions of dollars of modern currency was coming out of just North Carolina alone, just in timber alone, which is insane to think about when you're thinking about, like the early 1700s up to the mid 1700s, the amount of money that the British were making off of just this one commodity from the New World, just from this one colony. It's insane. But yeah, so there's a little bit on the timber talk that I promised you months ago while I'm laying under a Willys. What more could you want? I don't think you could want more. And if you do, then I don't know what to tell you. All right. Let's get back to it. Sorry about slowing in you on the ground. That might be. Let's see if we can't pop this old pan off here. Ooh. Old pan's dropping. Oh. All right, so the battery died right as I was pulling the old pan, so I stopped, changed the battery, and now we're going to pull the old pan. But I put you back on the tripod instead of on the magnetic mount because I wanted to. That's mainly the reason. So let's get you lowered down. All right, like that. And then if you look, all this dirt right here, that's all dirt dauber nest. That's all dirt daubers. Okay, so that's awesome. That's cool. We're gonna clip the microphone here on the tripod. I think, because there's no reason to carry it with me under there. Just to break it. So my voice is probably going to be muffled, so deal with it. All right, cool, thanks. Thank you for understanding. Here, let me kick it. Oh, kicking the tripod. Oh man, that was pleasant. Yay. I've got so much debris in my eyes that it's actually a little concerning. It's a little concerning. I'll be right back. Alright. So I was taking a look at the crank. Crank looks good. It's got a little bit of surface rust on the weights on it. So apparently this oil pan's had some water in it at some point, but nothing crazy, as long as there's not rust on the face where the bearings are or anything, which this engine runs fine, doesn't knock or anything, so that doesn't really matter that there's rust on those. Let's look at this oil pan. Let's get you dropped down. Yeah, that's a wrong year Camaro right there. All right. So if you take a look at this oil pan right here, you'll notice a significant amount of sludge in it, which is always good. But this is probably the first time this oil pan's been off this truck, or it's the first time it's been off of it in a number of years. So it's I've seen a lot worse than this. Get a little bit of maybe water in it, but it's probably shit. I'm messing everything up. Look at this. Look at this shit. Look at this. All right, let's calm down. Let's put our shirts back on. All right. I've seen a lot worse than this, but it does have some funk in here. Now the hole in this old pan is, I don't remember which side it's on. It's on, oh, that's right here. So, if you take a look at this right here, this old pan, wipe the camera off. This old pan right here, it's been like patched and crap, and it's probably GB weld or something. but they clearly hit this oil pan pretty hard on something and caved it in, and then they might have took it off then and tried to beat it back out and then patch it, but it didn't work, so it's got a steady leak while it's running. It's not spraying out or anything, but it's enough of a problem to where you don't want to drive the truck a whole lot. See, this is what it's supposed to look like. That's what it should look like. And then this is the side of it. This is what it looks like. So, no bueno. Looks almost like solder, actually, like brass solder. Or brazing, almost. But anyway, it's effed. It's no good. The oil pickup and everything under the truck, the oil pickup and the all that looks good. I'll show you that stuff when we're under there changing the rear main seal, which we're not doing tonight. We just wanted to get the oil pan off and get as much dirt in our eyes as we possibly could. And yeah, see this? Yeah, that's what we're going for. It's a new look, you know. I hate it when my mascara gets smeared, you know. I can't stand it. It's not a good look. But yeah, so we got our oil pan off. That's step uno. And then we're going to clean the face down there, clean the bottom of the engine pretty good. We got to clean the new oil pan. I got it off of a wagon. It's in good shape. Like I say, I'll probably sandblast it tomorrow. And then I'll get underneath here and prep it and go ahead and change the rear main seal. Hopefully it won't be a nightmare. And I won't have to loosen the crank because I don't like loosening the crank. I just want to pull the one bearing. I don't want to drop the crank, you know, at all. I don't want to mess with it. So hopefully it will go well. I don't know. But until then, until tomorrow, this is Red Clay Traveler giving you a good video on a Willys truck again. It feels right. It feels the way it's supposed to be. I'm gonna give y'all as much content as I can before I go out of town for work again. So I appreciate y'all's patience. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button. And remember, the Red Clay Traveler loves you. Keep on keeping on. Willys for life. Get those good old pans on these Willys. They need good old pans. Remember that, people. Willys for life. Jeep for life. Get it.